Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing surprising Dumpee mistakes. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing surprising Dumpee mistakes. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you need to avoid making mistakes. Whereas some errors are obvious, others can seem surprising. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 Dumpee mistakes you might not realise are big errors. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is ignoring your ex. Now, if you want to try to get your ex back, I strongly suggest that you never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. And this is from the perspective of the dumpee. So if you're a dumpee, you want to try to get your ex back, unfortunately you've been dumped. In most instances, I would suggest that you never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. And that bit is underlined, unless they contact you first. Now, lots of people think there is no harm in ignoring their ex, no harm in ignoring their dumper, because of course they've dumped you, they've treated you badly, they've disregarded you, and you feel that you owe them some of their own medicine perhaps. Or maybe you see it as you're trying to grow your value by showing that you're not going to easily jump as soon as they message you. Now, although I believe there is something in that last concept and you shouldn't be jumping instantaneously, I do believe you should be responding. So what I mean by this is if you receive a text from your ex-dumper, I don't believe you should be responding in 30 seconds. I would suggest perhaps leaving it a couple of hours even. But I do believe that you should respond, and you should respond as soon as you naturally can. If you're working for 8 hours, then you don't reply for 8 hours. If you're busy with your friends, your family, whatever you may be doing, then you don't respond. Maybe you respond the following day. But I do believe you should reply. Now, I'm basing this after speaking to many dumpers. And what I can tell you is what lots of dumpers have told me is that they would reach out once potentially, but they might not again. Now, of course, this can't be guaranteed for every specific situation. I'm not here to say that your ex-dumper will only try reaching out once, but what I can tell you is that many dumpers have told me just that. They have said a generalised thought that if you don't respond to their message, they're going to be really thinking to themselves, okay, I've ended a relationship, I've clearly hurt them, they don't want to speak, right, I'm going to move on with my life. So, what I'm trying to tell you as a dumpee is I strongly believe if you want to try to get your ex back and you receive a text from your ex, you should respond. Don't do it instantly, but you should respond within probably 12 hours or so, because that should cover any possibility. We're not living in the dark age. We're living in an age where we all have the ability to respond. I would suggest within 12 hours. We're always going to have a moment or two where we can have a few seconds to read a text and to reply. If you decide to put them on Iggy, if you decide to read the text and not reply, if you decide to not respond at all, if you decide to not even read what they've sent to you, then although I'm not going to guarantee they're not going to try again, I'm just telling you that it is a possibility. And if you actually want them back, you need to be considering this. If you actually want to reconnect, then ignoring your ex when they're reaching out to you is not necessarily the best option. Yes, you shouldn't be responding instantaneously, but you should respond. Communication is necessary. If you don't communicate, how can you reconnect? And you can't bank on the fact that you're thinking, well, I'm going to ignore them now, but if they message me again in a month, then I will reply. Or maybe if they send me a text that has a certain word count, then I believe they deserve a response. Now, of course, every situation is different. Every scenario is unique, and that is why I suggest that if you want support through your breakup, you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where you can speak one-on-one about your specific unique circumstances. Go to my website www.dateme.tips to find out more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service, and we can take this journey together and look at your specifics, because right now in today's podcast I can only give you generalized advice, and I don't know the ins and outs and the actual unique elements regarding your situation. But a generalized thought I would show and suggest is that one of the biggest Dumpee mistakes that people find surprising is that you shouldn't ignore your ex, whether or not you think they deserve it, whether or not they've typed enough words to you. I would strongly suggest if you want your ex back and they reach out to you, you must reply, you must communicate, because if they've messaged you, they're thinking of you. If you want to reconnect, that's the first step, and the second step is you having a conversation. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about surprising Dumpee mistakes. And point number 2 is statement changes. So if you've been dumped and you want to try to get your ex back, you might be thinking, well, they've ended a relationship, they didn't like how I was, so I'm going to make a big statement change, a big, huge change to what they thought I was. Now, although I am a big believer and promoter of personal growth and personal development, I don't suggest you make huge statement changes, especially soon after a breakup. When you're going for a breakup, you're not thinking clearly. Your mindset is clouded. You are likely and liable to make rash decisions, which are probably ones that you will regret in the future. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's just say you're somebody who has never had a tattoo before, and you think right now is that moment to get that first tattoo. I do not suggest you do this soon after a breakup. Again, this is because your mindset is clouded, emotions are high. Do you really want this tattoo? Now, many people love tattoos, but if you're somebody who's never had a tattoo, maybe that's because deep down you don't want one. And if you get a tattoo, it can be very challenging, if not near impossible, to actually remove it. So you need to be thinking clearly when you make such a decision. Another example I like to give is if you are somebody who has long hair and you think, you know what, I'm going to shave all of this off. This is something which will take a long time to rectify if you feel it's a mistake in the future. So some people are doing this because they feel their ex didn't like the person they were and they need to make a huge change. Again, although I do believe you need to go through personal development, personal growth, this is not about sudden statement changes. However, there are some people who think slightly differently. They think, look, my ex has dumped me. I'm going to do something which I know they hated, that I know, although I really wanted, they didn't like. And I'm going to make this choice and make this decision now to spite them. Now, although in this instance, this is something that perhaps you do want to do, you have been thinking about, and therefore maybe it is not a rash decision, what I would say is if you want to try to get your ex back, then doing something you know they specifically don't like is not going to help your cause. Now, I'm not here to say whether or not that should be of a concern to you, but again, today's podcast is about if you want to try to get your ex back. So if you want to try to get your ex back, you shouldn't be doing something deliberately to make them feel even less attracted to you. You could look at the 2 examples I've already given, maybe the tattoo, maybe the long hair being cut, those 2 examples, and of course, many, many more. These are situations where if you know your ex doesn't like this choice, even if you want to do this, if you want to reconnect, you've got to think, is this going to help you? Now, the broader picture is, should you be appeasing anybody? Should you be, whether it's your ex or anybody else, should you be living your life in a way for them and not you? I would say you need to be true to yourself. And if you really want to make these types of changes, the ones I've said, and obviously any other possible changing decision, if this is something you truly want and you've thought about for many months or years, then maybe you should be considering doing this type of thing, but not when you're having a clouded mindset, not when it could be a rash decision, and not if you want to try to reconnect with someone. If this is something that you really want to do for you, then think about it clearly beyond your breakup, beyond the recovery. And if you still feel this way, then absolutely make that choice, make that decision. And if this means that your ex is no longer attracted to you, well, maybe you've got to change your thoughts about wanting them back and change it instead to a position where you can be your true self and attract somebody who likes you for you. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about surprise and Dumpee mistakes. And point number 3 is having too much time out. So lots of people will say to me, I don't want to see my friends, my family. I just want to be on my own, process my feelings. What I would say is, although it's important to go through the process of really considering all of your thoughts, your feelings, getting through everything by yourself at times, I don't believe you should have too much time out. I genuinely and strongly believe that if you're alone for too long, you are going to be falling deeper and deeper into the doom and gloom of your mindset. Other people, friends, family, activities, work colleagues, whoever it may be, can help bring you out of those emotions, even if just temporarily. And that is what you need going through a breakup. Yes, you need to process your feelings. Yes, you might need some time alone, but please don't be alone for long. This is where sometimes people can slip into a depression. And if you feel that you are depressed, always remember that these feelings are temporary and you can get through this breakup situation. Please don't feel alone. If you don't feel that you can speak to your friends or family, contact a local doctor. You will get through this, I promise, okay? Don't fall into this mindset and thinking that nobody can help you, because they can. The sun will always rise after darkness. So please don't be scared. You will get through this. But you must remember that sometimes you might not feel like you're wanting to do something, but it can be very, very helpful. Maybe your friends have invited you to the cinema, to the movies, and you think, I don't want to go. Well, why don't you just go? Why don't you go watch the movie? Maybe just for 5 minutes during the film, you will lose yourself with what you're watching and give your mindset a break. You don't have to be scared that you won't have time to process. Yes, you're going to have lots of time to think about your ex and the situation. Sometimes dumpees can be fearful that if they don't think about things now and thoroughly, that somehow they will forget something important. You won't. Give your mind time off. Give yourself a break. Allow yourself to lose yourself in a situation with your friends, your family, whatever it may be. Don't take too much time out. Yes, have some time alone. Yes, have some time to process, but don't make this a priority where you refuse to see anybody or talk to anybody because you just want to be alone. You are very unlikely to be able to get yourself through this dark tunnel as quickly if you were doing this alone, because you are surrounded by your own thoughts, and your thoughts are unfortunately very sad right now. If you speak to other people, you have no option but to hear what they're saying. And although they're going to be speaking about your situation, perhaps at first, they're likely to be speaking about other things, other moments to help pull yourself out of this situation. Maybe they speak to you about sports, maybe about what's on TV, maybe even about politics, which, although can be quite divisive sometimes, might just take your mind off your own specific situation. I would say that speaking to friends, speaking to family, trying to go to work and maintaining your life in as many ways as you can is going to help you through this bleak tunnel sooner rather than later. We need to make sure that you are not standing on a glass floor where you keep falling and falling and falling. I've heard of unfortunate situations where people have gone through breakups, and then beyond the initial breakup, they feel they can't go to work, or maybe they do and they make mistakes. Then they lose their job, and now they don't have income, they don't have money. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. Stop the rot. Stop things getting worse. You will get through this. And this will mean that you have to communicate with people, friends, family, work colleagues. Go and enjoy yourself, even if just for a moment. Go on a short trip, a short holiday, a short vacation. Make sure you are living your life to the full. Even if you don't feel like it, you will have moments where you forget your situation, you lose yourself in what you're doing, and you can smile. And one smile through a weekend is much better than no smiles. So give it a chance, give it a moment. So although I understand people need their own space, they need time to process, please don't have too much time out. It is unlikely to help you, and I believe it is a surprising Dumpee mistake, because lots of Dumpees say to me, I just want to be on my own. And I'm here to tell you that although some alone time is necessary, most of the time you need to be with other people, communicating and living your life. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.